one of my favourite journalists at the moment, Alex Phillips, exposing one of the worst people in this country who is still given airtime. What a surprise, by the BBC. Alistair War Criminal Campbell, spin doctor for Tony Blair, one of the biggest war criminals in history. She was actually fearful for her safety sat next to him on BBC Newsnight. When was this? A couple of years ago. So let's listen to what she has to say.
Pans round and so we go out of shot is how physical it almost gets and how sort of physically threatening he was towards me. And I'm not like a Me Too movement. I was really scared. I was scared. I actually thought he was going to throw a punch at me, and so did the producers.
I mean, goodness me. Yeah. Alex Phillips, it does show you how the left think though, right? Met Police, go and investigate Douglas Murray for speaking the truth. Don't go and investigate the rapists or the muggers or the burglars or the wannabe terrorists. Go and investigate Douglas Murray. Now, the fact that it comes from Alistair Campbell, well,
I remember when he wrote
come
it.
on.
Well, it ties back to what I was saying about the DEI lot, the pro-diversity lot, the authoritarian left in this country. It's amazing that during the whole time of the riots, how many people suddenly salivated with glee, were rabid with intent on putting @Met Police on everybody's post. Everybody wanted to shop everybody else. That the left just wanted everyone on the right wing to be sent to prison, to be thrown off Twitter, to be banned, to be censored, to be punished. They had this horrible punitive mindset, and Alistair Campbell's like the king of the castle, isn't it? This is the man who, when it came to the dodgy dossier, turned around and said to the BBC and all the other sort of journalists, oh, it was Professor David Kelly, and that man was found hanging from a tree. So Alistair Campbell has blood on his hands in a very real sense, in a personal sense with one man's life. And when it comes to loads of innocent people in another country that was bombed, the man is disgusting. He's an ex-alcoholic. He's a narcissist. He's a sociopath. He once almost punched me in the face on Newsnight because he couldn't win an argument. And yet the BBC will roll him out in the studios every 5 seconds as if he's the second coming of Jesus Christ. The left get away with so much. And you can see this is now why they are foam-flecked with absolute intent on going after political dissent, going after voices of opposition with a sort of hunger that Hitler would be proud of. It worries me, frankly. And this whole little trend they've got of @Met Police, this person, @Met Police, that person. We actually are now rubbing shoulders and walking side by side with true authoritarians, the likes of which we haven't seen in Europe for almost 100 years. And we need to wake up to that.
It is utterly sinister, Alex Armstrong.
Yeah, and I think Alex nailed it. We've been living with it for a while, and I think now the emboldenment with the Labour victory has meant these people feel like we've got our lawyer in charge that's of two-tier care. We've got Labour in charge, so our values have been vindicated. We're going to weaponize. And it was only after the election I really saw them going into this direction. I really saw them going for this @Met Police because I had a ton of them. I actually was prolifically creating memes to make light of the situation of the rioting in the country and to just, maybe give people a little bit of comic relief on the right. And I had quite a large, should I say legal account? He's a lawyer, quite a large lawyer who's got hundreds of thousands of followers, tagging the Attorney General in my posts about Keir Starmer burning the Magna Carta. I was like, are you having a laugh? It's a joke, get over yourself. But they have become so emboldened and Alex, it's so punitive of their Puritan moral grandstanding. One of the only great things that's happened in the last few months is that this Labour Party has unraveled quicker than a garnish of wool in a hurricane. And I'm so happy to see them finally this moral high ground they've been sitting on be unraveled in front of them. It hasn't stopped the obviously Met Police people, but what it has done is tell the rest of us in the country that no, they don't have their act together. No, they aren't ready to govern. Actually, this is a circus and the clowns are running it. So I think people are taking great, maybe just feeling that there's maybe some light at the end of the tunnel, that this government might not last forever. And I really hope for all of our sakes that it doesn't.
I honestly don't think... Then
Alex, I'd actually forgotten about that brilliant
they will
clash
go to 2029.
between yourself and Alistair
There will be a general election
but
before
he
then.
was...
I'm telling
he was
you
utterly
now.
vile to you, wasn't he? That was the thing. It was personal.
It will be called early.
And they don't, you know, can you imagine if Nigel Farage had lost his temper and was saying, shut up, dear, and then swinging his arm towards a left-wing commentator, he would be banned from all television programmes ever. And yet Alistair Campbell, they continue to roll out the red carpet. And this is despite all the staff at Newsnight after that event coming and comforting me, going, well, he can be like this. Well, you know, are you okay? They were all shaken by it as well, because what you don't see as the camera pans round and so we go out of shot is how physical it almost gets and how sort of physically threatening he was towards me. And I'm not like a Me Too movement. Oh, you know, I was really scared. I was scared. I actually thought he was going to throw a punch at me, and so did the producers. And yet they will still have him back on. And, you know, but talking, Alex Armstrong there, talking about how, you know, they're trying to get their own way. They've got the Labour Party in charge. They think they can come after us. This is why the New Year's resolution for everybody is don't give a fuck. Say what you want to say. They can't come after every last man, woman and child. We've got to not go along with it.
Yes.
We've got to turn around and say, I'm saying what I want. I'm going to stand up for my rights. I'm going to stand up for my freedoms. Come and get me.
Yes.
Try. You try and come up.
Yes. Oh my goodness, I couldn't agree more. Speaking of the mainstream media, at number 26 on the list of the worst of 2024, Channel 4 uses an actor in its bombshell election expose of Reform UK.
If you've been wearing glasses more than 5 years, stop scrolling. We're looking for people.
Spotted. This was unbelievable. This was an actor who specialises in rough voices and specialises in secret filming. And we now have a written statement, Dan, from someone who was in the car with the filmer and this actor. And the two of those people were in deep discussion at the beginning of the rendezvous of the volunteers. So they were there together working out how they were going to do it. This thing was the greatest stitch-up in modern electoral times.
Alex Armstrong, what did you make of this?
I was really shocked. I actually sorry. I think I was talking about the wrong person there. Sorry. I was really shocked by this, Dan, and I actually emailed someone at Reform when I first saw the footage leak, and I was like, you know, this doesn't actually remind me of people who I've met at Reform. This is not my experience of working with Reform UK party members and activists. And it all felt a little bit odd. And when the news broke that this might be an actor, and it was circulating on Twitter, there were some people doing some great individual investigations on Twitter about who these people are, where they've come from. And of course, we found his, there's like some sort of actors page where people can go and, you know, sign up to be extras and things like that. And this guy had his own page on there. And it was quite obvious that the man was not in a constituency where he lived, was putting on a voice that was not naturally his own voice, and then pretended to be a Reform Party activist, and Channel 4 just so happened to be filming him. I mean, what are the chances, Dan? What are the chances, right? So I was absolutely gobsmacked. And only the mainstream media would be so bold to to attack a political party, to attack our democracy in the weeks in the run-up to an election. Only they would be so bold to do it. And there was no accusations of racism and anything else in parts of the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, even though any of us who have worked in politics know that it's rife in both of those parties. It was, of course, going after Reform, who was surging in the polls. I think at this point we're seeing Reform hit 17 to 20%. And they were doing everything they could to stop Nigel Farage. And in my opinion, my honest opinion, I know that there's no evidence for this, but my honest opinion was this man was a paid actor. I don't believe he represents Reform. And I think this was a shoddy attempt, like the whole Farage is best mates with Putin, is a Putin sympathizer, a shoddy attempt to shut down Reform UK before an election victory.
And it's funny, isn't it? Channel 4 weren't going undercover with any of the pro-Hamas candidates, were they? Now, Alex Phillips, just before I get you to weigh in, let's take a little look at some of this Channel 4 expose.
Offensive language, including this canvasser saying people seeking asylum should be shot.
Get the young recruits there, with guns on the beach, target practice, to shoot them.
Racist language was repeatedly used, here directed at the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak.
We got it. What's good is he?
And homophobia from Farage's inner circle.
You see that degenerate flag on the front bonnet? What the old Bill doing promoting that crap?
They should be sued for this.
Now, Alex Phillips, in terms of that last comment, I have absolutely no problem with it. Why should the Met Police be flying the what's it called, the Pride Progress flag, which, let's be honest, encourages the mutilation of children?
Yeah. I mean, look, Channel 4 have got such past form in this. I've been stung by Channel 4. The thing is with Channel 4, they make up a story and then they try and evidence it, rather than what a journalist should do is get evidence and then see if there's a story there. They invented this whole narrative that I worked for Cambridge Analytica, just as they invented with Carol Cadwallader and The Observer, this whole narrative that Cambridge Analytica worked on Brexit and Cambridge Analytica worked on Trump, and Cambridge Analytica was somehow using personal data to bend people's minds. First of all, Cambridge Analytica worked on the Cruz campaign. They didn't work for Vote Leave or Leave.eu. And when I was working over in Kenya, I was a consultant for SCL Laboratories, which was a precursor to what later became Cambridge Analytica. But that's a bit like saying, because I don't know, Sainsbury's have bought a particular company, Argos or whatever, and I worked for Argos, I was working for Sainsbury's. I mean, I wasn't. But they invent stuff, and when they followed me around, they sort of tried to creep around Parliament, tracking me everywhere, pretended they were doing an interview about something completely different. They're so corrupt. I cannot believe this news channel is allowed to continue to exist. But this is the thing, right? You know, newspapers like News of the World were shut down. Some would say rightly so, with phone tapping and hacking. But Channel 4 get away with murder. They tell outright lies. They deliberately stage things. They do these sort of set-up traps with undercover filming, using actors. And this is not what a news organisation does, right? This is not news. They should not be receiving any money from the licence fee, which I understand, I think the news operation still does. Frankly, they should be taken off air. They're getting away with things because why? They're the left wing. It's that simple. Future, no one else could do what they do.
Couldn't agree more. And if they believe that there's some sort of market for their shoddy journalism, then fine. Go and try and survive in the commercial sector. See if people will pay for it. But the fact that they are a government-owned broadcaster is
Channel 4.
a
joke.
joke.
Pay for ITV.
But let's move on now to number 25 in our countdown of the worst of 2024. And it was that
and then you have the internet,
Jaguar
you pay
woke
a fee
rebrand.
for every month.
Listen to this.
But first, we've been told our whole lives that wrinkle creams were the easiest way to look younger. Now one doctor says that's nothing but
A Jaguar ad I've seen.
Alex Armstrong, I think they should maybe change their tagline from delete ordinary to delete profits.
Well, anyway, but
I think you're right, Dan.
What would you
the funny thing is that they've made this out to be like, oh, we're doing something so bold, so different. I've seen this a billion times at those Pride marches. I mean, this is nothing unique, so to speak. Ever. This is just them having a massive piece of work that is essentially there to shock you, to get you talking about it. And I believe it's achieved its goal in getting people to speak about Jaguar. But as Elon Musk said, do you even sell cars? Because there's not a single car in this advertisement. It's absolutely batshit bonkers. It really is. It's nonsense level business that has gone mad, that has said, right, our business is dying. How can we shock one of the most beautiful and well-respected British brands in the world? How can we utterly destroy it? And of course, if you've seen the creative director of Jaguar Land Rover, you'll know why. The guy is a abhorred left-wing woke ideology up to his eyeballs who wants to change the world and indoctrinate people into his way of thinking. And you'll see exactly why Jaguar is never going to exist again in a few years' time. And it's going to be people like him who's put that business's head on a guillotine, in my opinion, Dan. It's absolutely shocking.
Well, I mean, he was straight from Woke Central casting. Have a listen to how he tried to sell Jaguar at the Attitude Awards, dressed like he thought he was performing at the Eurovision Song Contest.
And at Jaguar, we're passionate about our people, and we're committed to fostering a diverse, inclusive, and unified culture that is representative not only of the people who use our products, but in a society in which we all live. A culture where our employees can bring their authentic selves to work. And we're on a transformative journey of our own, driven by a belief in diversity, inclusion, creativity, policy, and most importantly, action. We've established over 15 DEI groups, such as Pride, who are here tonight in the back. Thank you guys for coming. Women in Engineering and Neurodiversity Matters. We've launched major policy revisions such as transitioning at work to drive equity and support for our communities, embracing individuality as our superpower.
Alex Phillips, your response?
Fuck off. I mean, it's disgusting. It was like the bingo card of fostering equity, inclusion, diversity. Do you know what? Here's some news for all the freakazoids out there and people in the advert. The vast majority of human beings on this planet aren't gender fluid. They don't have ambiguous, identities. They're just normal fucking people, right? The vast majority of people on this planet also, and this isn't meant to be a homophobic comment, are also straight. That is just how it's worked out in the numbers. And the vast majority of people in the United Kingdom, for which Jaguar is, once upon a time, the crown jewel in our automotive industry, are also white. Okay? I'm sorry if that upsets people. That's just the bloody truth. So who are they trying to target? Why are they constantly trying to erase what the majority of people are, what the majority of people want, what the majority of people respond to? I'm sick to death of these companies employing weirdos like him, who all they can do is churn out a word soup of absolute fucking nonsense, and then they completely destroy a brand that once upon a time we were proud of and we should be proud of. It actually makes me sick to the stomach. Again, New Year's resolution. No, over.
No.
I'm just.
You're done with it. You're done. Yeah. I mean, I find the delete ordinary phrase actually so offensive. It's like, what's wrong with being ordinary? Don't people want to be ordinary? And in fact, when it comes to gay men, J.D. Vance, vice president-elect of the US, spoke about the normal gays during the election campaign. And actually, I thought that's what we wanted as gay men, Alex. We wanted to be accepted. We wanted to be ordinary. Like, being ordinary is okay, right?
What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it? The world is
have to be made out to be a freak and a weirdo and a hairstyle who looks mentally ill.
It's the opposite of what we fought for, I would argue.
But this is so true. This is so true, right? In my generation, we were brought up with this whole massive campaign called Ditch the Label. It meant you don't put labels on everything, that everyone is accepted for who they are. But that also means you're accepted for just being a normal human being. It now feels like in order to be accepted into society, to be part of this weird little cabal of freaks who are starting to run businesses clearly, that you have to be completely outrageous. You must be labeled. You must have pronouns. You must be transitioning or something. Like, what was wrong with people? The world is made up of ordinary folk who just want to get on with their lives without being told that they're horrible people, without being told that they're racist, they're fascist, that they're xenophobic, that they're Islamophobic, all these phobias and isms. They just want to get on with their lives. Stop shoving LGBT woke nonsense down their throat. Gay people just want to get on with their lives. The vast majority of them do, should I say, without having any conflict with anyone else. They just want a normal life,
and without depriving them of trying to change society and change great brands. Absolutely. But let's move on to number 24 on the list of the worst of 2024. And this is the off-communist, the UK government censor trying to destroy financially my former colleague at GB News, Mark Steyn. So Steyn has been charged £50,000 in a court-ordered payment. He has been told he has to make this payment within 4 days after taking the UK's evil state censor to court.
Why?
Now, this actually gets worse, because the off-communists are demanding £144,959.28 in total. That is utterly sick, given that this is an organisation trying to take away our free speech that shouldn't even exist. And I mean, after that broadcast, Alex, we managed to raise the money that Mark needed, but that is just the first payment being demanded by the off-communists. It was £54,000. They actually want well over £100,000 in total.
Fine.
It's mental, isn't it? This is just, it's out of control. And all of this stuff always ties back to the bloody vaccine that you weren't allowed to criticise. Everyone had to have it. I mean, that was one of the biggest forms of blackmail I've ever seen. We're now learning, again, incrementally, because there's a big cover-up, that loads of people probably didn't need that vaccine. The vaccine's been actively harmed by it. But at the time, if you tried to say anything about this sort of sinister social political coercion to having an untested jab, you were a criminal.
I can't smell.
And this is just frankly abhorrent. Again, the same Ofcom who are fining Mark Steyn all of that money will let Channel 4 continue to use actors and, come up with fake storylines and play them out in some sort of Amdram reinterpretation of the news. I'm actually for there being a regulator, in many respects when it comes to broadcasting, because it is there to make sure that people don't lie. The problem is, of course, is audiences are being lied to and are being deceived, and it's when people are trying to speak the truth that the regulator suddenly snaps into action.
Alex Armstrong, even GB News decided to take the off-communists to court in 2024.
It is no measure of sanity to be well-adjusted to an insane society.
Yeah, look, I think this next year is going to be critical for freedom of speech across the country. I think we're going to see this rebellion pick up pace. I'm glad that GB News have found the backbone and are deciding, you know what, we're not going to be shut up. We're not going to be fined for doing something that BBC Question Time does almost, every month up into an election. They have one of the party leaders on there, and they questioned them. And that whole thing with Rishi Sunak is an absolute joke that they're finding them for it. When you watch the show back, the Prime Minister was very much challenged on his views. He wasn't left unchallenged. But when it comes to individual stars, this is where it starts to worry me. Because I know, Dan, of course, you've had a situation with GB News where you've been cancelled and taken off air. And I think big organizations and media organizations in general must find the will and their own backbone and protect the people on their channel, because it's utterly critical that there is a broader group of people that are going to stand up with big platforms and can utilize all different forms of media, not just online, but on the telly as well, and say, actually, this is wrong. We mustn't allow this to happen. We are just questioning the truth. We're just questioning the facts that you've been presenting us. There's the so-called government truth, as I like to call it. And if we're not allowed to do that, then you might as well shut down the television and every streaming service in the country and just have the BBC on, because that's what will be left at the end of all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with all of that. I guess the one caveat I would say is that, unfortunately, GB News thought that if it fed the beast, so it was like, let's chuck Mark Steyn under the bus. Okay, now we'll chuck Lawrence Fox under the bus. Okay, yep, we'll chuck Dan under the bus too. They thought it would show to the off-communists that they were taking them seriously. But unfortunately, all it did was embolden the off-communists, and they haven't gone away. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken.
Okay. That was great. And just shows what Alistair Campbell's all about, scaring women when he's losing a debate, which he often does lose debates, especially around Brexit. He gets destroyed. I've seen him be destroyed by Nigel Farage. I've just seen him be destroyed so many times now. Anyway, Only Facts Media. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the share button. Cheers for joining, guys.